Hi, I think I've hopefully fixed my Wi-Fi issue. So we'll try this again, and I really hope it works. Hi.
Oh.
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
I think everyone's trying to use the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I had to go into my 4G as my partner is at home also using the Wi-Fi. So
John is so selfish. Gosh.
I know.
So hopefully people are able to join us again.
Great.
So do you maybe want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and have people get to know you a little bit?
For sure. And thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's great that we can kind of work together and try and spread some evidence and some strategies to help people in these really difficult times. So my name's Whitney. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm Canadian by upbringing, and I did all of my training in Canada. I've been living in the UK for about 6 years. So I do research and clinical practice in how people can manage with chronic pain. So I'm based at King's College London, as well as an NHS pain management service.
Cool. So I suppose the reason that we were talking today is that pandemics don't really care about existing health conditions.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is how, for me and for a lot of people that I've been speaking to, stress exacerbates pain levels.
Yeah.
And so what I really wanted to do today is kind of first maybe go over the basic I saw someone say vintage and I was speaking vintage. I shouldn't read and speak at the same time. Go over maybe just some basic education about pain, the really basic stuff, and then we can go into more coping strategies and stress management and the things that people can kind of do when they don't necessarily have access to the things that could help them, or when times are particularly scary and stressful like they are right now.
For sure.
So can we maybe start by getting a little introduction into what is pain and what is chronic pain? Because the way you explained it to me was like the best way it had ever been explained.
So I know we've chatted a lot about that. Chronic pain is a really complex thing, and it's quite a bit different than acute pain. But fundamentally, chronic pain is what we call sort of a biopsychosocial phenomenon. So while physical pain in the body and that you feel in the body has sort of a physical and biological component, there's also aspects like our thoughts and feelings about the pain that can sort of make the pain feel worse or can make it feel harder to deal with. And sort of making the difference between acute and chronic pain. So pain that lasts for a short time is actually really adaptive for us if we think from sort of an evolutionary point of view. So if you think of an example of sort of putting your hand on a hot stove, the pain signal is there to motivate you to take your hand off of that hot stove, and that sort of preserves the body integrity. And sort of a similar example is kind of like pain being like this fire alarm that's going off. So when it's short term, the fire alarm rings, and that sort of motivates you, as I said, to get out of the apartment, to do something to sort of escape the fire. In the context of chronic pain, it's kind of like that fire alarm is constantly going or is very, very sensitive, and it's ringing when you're actually not in the same danger as in sort of acute pain. But understandably, you're motivated to escape danger or perceive danger because that alarm is still ringing. And that's sort of the key difference between acute and chronic pain.
And when we're talking about psychosocial, I think it's really important to clarify that psycho doesn't mean it's all in your head.
100%,
yeah.
100%. And we know that these things are sort of very integrated, but yeah, certainly there's a lot of very natural thoughts and feelings one person might have about pain, and that might sort of feed into pain and its impact, but that isn't to say that it's sort of a psychological phenomenon in any stretch of the imagination. We know that there are sort of physiological reasons that can contribute to chronic pain, and it's this whole sort of complex ball of things that lead to chronic pain.
And that can be hard enough to deal with under any circumstances. So now when we're dealing with a global crisis, why could people be experiencing higher levels of pain right now?
Yeah, so certainly it's entirely understandable for anyone to be feeling anxious, stressed, uncertainty, anger, frustration, all of these things at this moment. And we know that those sort of strong emotional reactions can feed into sort of exacerbating the pain itself. But it can also, I think, perhaps even more importantly, it may sort of make people feel like there's nothing that they can do to try and manage the pain or to try and manage their life, because it feels like so much stuff is out of our control right now. And in many respects it is, but that said, there are still potential opportunities to look for control for how people might respond to dealing with pain in an effective way, or as effective as possible given the circumstances.
One of the things that I've been a bit concerned about is the stress of it pushing me into a flare-up. And I've been trying to stay as calm as I can, but I think the first few days, like a lot of people, I couldn't stop reading everything that was going on. And I was in the same position all day, just trying to read everything, and my neck pain went through the roof because I was in a really bad position for me. And so I think what might be helpful is to discuss some maybe techniques that people can use to help them stay calm or help them manage the feelings that they're experiencing. What are some evidence-based techniques that can be helpful when things are quite difficult?
Yeah. So I mean, just first, before kind of moving to evidence, just some practical stuff. I think just you mentioned sort of staying in the same position, looking at sort of a lot of the news feeds. And of course, that's all really natural to do. It's a really heightened time of anxiety. And I think, and I'm no better at this myself, putting some limits on sort of how we expose ourselves to some of this information. So I think obviously it's important to keep informed, to kind of know the latest guidance around what steps we should or should not be taking, but maybe setting up sort of limits either on your phone for how much you spend sort of scrolling through social media or on news networks. That can be sort of a way of containing some of the anxiety that you might feel. There's actually a document that came out recently that I can send you, and I don't know how we can share this, but it's really useful. The type of therapy that I practice for helping people with chronic pain is a treatment called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short. And a practitioner of this just released kind of a Word document that has some kind of guidance or acronyms that are quite simple into how you might respond to your emotions more effectively. And this ACT itself is evidence-based for a number of sort of different challenges, including chronic pain. So in terms of responding to emotions, I think the first thing is to simply acknowledge that you're having difficult thoughts and feelings. And that can be a first place to start to then make a choice about what you do with those experiences. So it's really natural to say, this is really tough, I want to avoid it, I'm just going to push it all away and distract myself. And in maybe some circumstances, that's okay, but sometimes that can be really difficult to maintain over a long period of time. It's almost like a pressure cooker. It can only sort of be so long before it pops open. So this first step of kind of acknowledging, labeling, I'm having anxiety right now, I'm feeling really frustrated, can then be the first step in a choice that you can make next. Some aspects that we might call sort of simple grounding strategies is just a way to come kind of back into what's happening in the moment or even in your body. So depending on where one feels the pain, you can kind of choose a different body part, but a simple thing can be just sort of gently pushing your feet into the ground and just really focusing on what that feels like, for no other reason than to just be in the moment and just connect with something that's not sort of thoughts swirling around in the mind. So again, that's kind of a present moment or grounding kind of strategy. And then the last kind of component of ACT is really connecting with what's important to you in life and the kind of person you want to be, even in the face of all of these numerous challenges, whether they be pain or COVID related. And obviously bigger goals that we might have right now might be stifled, understandably, by the fact that many of us are responsibly staying at home where we need to. So thinking about within the circumstance, what are even very, very small steps that I can take today if nothing else were to change with my pain, with what's going on in the world around me. So that would allow me to be the kind of person I want to be looking back when this is all hopefully in a better place. So these can be things like, how do I want to treat myself and others with kindness? How do I want to reach out to my community? How do I want to take care of my well-being, whether that be mental health or physical health? And again, the emphasis here is not on massive things. It's about really small, concrete steps that are doable within current limitations.
And do you think that for people who have some form of routine to help them with their self-management, it's really important to try and keep that up as much as possible while all of this is going on?
100%. So again, obviously, I think structure for everybody, whether or not they have pain, is really important, but can be particularly useful for people that have pain, and given current circumstances with lots of anxiety going around. That said, obviously, normal routines are potentially disrupted right now. So looking at within this new normal for the time being, how can structure be maintained? And that might be through sort of going to bed at the same time or a similar time, waking up at a similar time, sort of getting washed and dressed where that's possible, sort of eating meals regularly. I know for myself, again, if I'm working from home, I find it difficult to kind of contain the bleed over between home and work. So I'm trying to put my laptop in a different room. I'm trying to work not in my bedroom. So things like that. And along the way, I mean, I've messed up in a lot of this. I've been scrolling incessantly on Twitter and the news feeds. We need to be kind to ourselves. So bringing that compassion in that we're going to mess up. It's going to be tough. There may be days that we decide to sit on the couch and we just need that. So yeah, not being super rigid about any of this and really taking it one day at a time with a sense of kindness.
And this is a slightly off topic question, but I've been told by people my entire life, you need to be kinder to yourself.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like in the sense of, you know, I think it's very easy to see memes floating around that say, you know, be gentle with yourself and be kind to yourself. But do you have any kind of tangible ideas of how people can start doing that? Because I've always found that very difficult to do.
Yeah. And I guess part of that goes back to kind of that first aspect of acceptance and commitment therapy that I was talking about, with simply sort of acknowledging what's showing up for you in your thoughts and feelings. So often we're so unaware of sort of the patterns of our thinking and emotions that we very kind of instinctively act. So kind of one common pattern of behavior in people that have pain can be to kind of push through activities because maybe you feel guilty or maybe you want to get stuff done.
That's me.
And that sort of kindness is first sort of saying, actually, what's driving my actions right now? Oftentimes it feels like your actions are outside of your control, but in fact, while we can't control in many cases, pain, we can't control our thoughts and feelings about pain. What we can choose is our actions. So an action that says, you know, I'm having really difficult thoughts and feelings that are maybe suggesting I should push on or really push forward. Is that what's going to be best for me right now? And is actually slowing down right now going to be better? Actually, rather than pushing to get all my work done right now, would connecting with a friend by Skype or something serve me better? So those little actions and looking at, are you maybe pushing a bit too hard? Are you kind of, is the sort of story going through your head, sort of one that's really beating you up for not getting things done, or for sort of quote unquote failing? And we kind of talk about sort of failure as really being an ingredient of success. So in many cases, we may have the best intended plans and life happens, pain happens, and there are times that you won't do what you set out to do. And that's okay. Each day is kind of a new day to make another choice, and just bringing that sense of getting back on the bike when you fall off, and that's all okay.
And I think I've been seeing a lot of images and memes being shared where people have been, thank you, Kat. Thank you for joining us. I'll try and share it later. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about how you can use this time to, you know, write your novel or learn a language or make productive use of this time. And I think especially for people who have had ongoing health problems and have had to be dealing with that anyway. Well, I mean, I suppose for everyone, like everyone is, you know, scared right now. So as you said, taking that time and saying, it's okay to slow down. It's okay that I'm having a hard time. It's okay that, you know, I need to take a step back. And I suppose along with that is the fact that for a lot of people, the either the treatments that they have or the things that they do for their mental health or even their physical health, they might not have access to anymore, whether that's, you know, going and getting a physical treatment, going to the gym, going to an art class, going for a walk outside. You know, how can people cope with things when their existing coping strategies might not be accessible to them at the moment?
Yeah, so that's a really important point, and it is sort of just an unfortunate reality right now that many services that are vitally important to people living with long-term conditions are unable to operate in the same way. In some cases, there is capacity to shift to kind of telephone working. In other ways, it may not be possible. So kind of finding what's possible within sort of being at home, and that will look different for everybody. So there may be people that do value and want to be very productive during this time, and that's fine. But this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. And kind of going back to that kind of ACT-based values approach, that will potentially look different for everybody. And I think it's about people connecting with what's important to me right now, without kind of outside influences sort of steering what I choose to do. And I think knowing what's been helpful in the past. So if it is getting gentle exercise, and you can't go to physiotherapy or you can't go to the gym, what might be possible at home? So is it sort of gentle stretching at home? Is it doing silly little dances like I tend to do with my partner in the kitchen?
I would like some videos of that.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be sort of thinking outside of the box and thinking about, okay, what's important to me? Are there steps that I can still do at home, even if I can't get the normal health professional support? And this isn't to downplay that that is a really, really upsetting and unfortunate situation. It's just about looking for what are the options given the situation.
What kind of things have you been able to speak with your patients or be able to speak with them remotely while this has been going on? Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Ashley, sorry, just before, if anyone has any questions, because I saw a question pop up.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, please just pop them in the little chat thing and we'll get to them. Sorry, Whitney.
Yeah. So I have to say, in terms of NHS services, it all is very locally determined. So it's kind of hard to say broad sweeping statements. But by and large, face-to-face appointments are, where possible, being converted to phone. We've started to do that a little bit, but I mean, the nature of some of our face-to-face appointments means that unfortunately they can't all be done by phone, but where possible, we're kind of trying to reach out to people. But it will take time and it will not be sort of the same, obviously, as face-to-face.
And are there any, I suppose, on top of the techniques that we've been talking about, are there any techniques that people can use to, because I suppose not having access to the people that have been helping you, if you've been very reliant on that and then you just suddenly don't, is there anything that people should think about if they're panicking about that? Is it going back to those grounding exercises or realizing like maybe right now it is going to get a little bit more difficult until
kind of going to that, acknowledging it is a really difficult time. There's no real quick fixes here. I mean, if there's issues of kind of needing urgent medication, it's still, I mean, obviously GP surgeries are stretched, but it's still appropriate to sort of reach out to the GP if medication is what's needed. Sort of people living with these conditions are the experts to say what they need and don't need. So past treatments that have been helpful, if there are any elements of that can be sort of self-managed at home, sort of thinking about past learning. So has there been something within past physiotherapy face-to-face that you've taken away? Are there sort of stretches that can be done at home? Is there information about pain that's been useful? Can you kind of reflect on that in terms of doing things at home? So yeah, kind of just reflecting on what is needed. When is it sort of actually necessary to reach out to the GP, and when can things be handled at home?
And would you be able to maybe talk us through a little bit more about ACT and kind of what you do with that? Because I think it might be helpful to people just to kind of maybe get a starting point to learn a little bit about it.
Yeah. So ACT, as I talked about, sort of stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And when I say the word acceptance, I think it's important to clarify, because when applied to pain, I think the implication is like, oh, I just have to live with this forever and it's just going to be crap forever. And that's not really what we mean by that. Really, we kind of draw in part on kind of present moment or mindfulness-based approaches to kind of say, what's happening right now, and can I make some space for this difficulty right now so that I can make a choice about what's going to be helpful and important for me to do given the reality of this situation. So we use a lot of exercises, drawing on kind of mindfulness traditions and meditation kind of practice, helping people to kind of notice the mind's natural tendency to wander. So with chronic pain, it's really natural to think about how difficult the future will be or how different the present is from the past. And again, all of that is understandable and natural. And sometimes it might not be the most helpful or useful. So we help people to kind of notice when their thoughts are wandering and then to come back to the present moment. And that's kind of a continual process. It's not like we're going to spend all the time in the present. It's just kind of checking in and checking in and checking in. And then there's elements that I've been talking about of first, kind of acknowledging your thoughts and feelings, and then making some space for those difficulties so that you can then make a choice about what you want to do. So where this differs from sort of more traditional cognitive behavioral therapy is that we recognize that many thoughts and feelings that people have, particularly about pain, are actually really founded and really kind of understandable. So rather than saying those are unhelpful or those are wrong, it's about saying, we get it. This is kind of natural based on the circumstances. What can you do with what's given, kind of thing. And then kind of once people know what's important to them, sort of helping them to make some small steps to do actions that reflect their values.
And what are some of the steps that can help encourage people to do some of those things? I go through phases with what I call responsibility fatigue, where like I know there's a whole lot of things that I can do in my day-to-day life that are really helpful, but if I'm trying to do that on top of getting through the day and working, it's like something has to give. And sometimes like, especially in terms of like sleep hygiene, because I never wake up refreshed even if I do sleep, so it's like I don't get the reward of feeling refreshed.
Fair enough.
What are some ways maybe to shift my mindset, or you know, some just tools generally for people that are struggling with feeling motivated enough to be able to do these things in the first place? Because I think sometimes you can get very stuck. Especially now, it seems understandable, right? So
I'm just going to plug in my phone in case it turns off. 1 second. So one thing to say again, this is an aspect where bringing that kind of kindness to yourself can be really useful. So while other kind of mindfulness-based approaches maybe are quite prescriptive about you have to do a mindfulness exercise for 45 minutes a day, we don't really prescribe things in that way. I mean, we ask people to practice strategies, but mostly kind of integrating it in the context of their daily life. So we kind of use mindfulness as a vehicle to get people going where they want to go, not kind of as a means to an end. So in your example of kind of feeling like you're already working and you can't kind of fit things in with what's going on with work and things like that, kind of an act-based strategy would be maybe waking up in the morning and just taking a few minutes to connect with, why are you even going to work? Why is it important to you? What qualities as a person do you want to bring to the work that you do? And while that may not make the work any easier or less tiring, it may make it feel more satisfying and like you're not just dredging through another day. So that's a really sort of perhaps easy or a quick example of, it doesn't have to be this really long strategy or exercise. It's just what kind of person do I want to be today, and how can I show up to be that person, even if it's just for a moment. That's kind of something,
and I think that's something right now a lot of us are thinking, like, how can we help other people when we're seeing so many people struggling? I think as well, a lot of the chronic pain things that I'd been to or I'd been recommended when I was younger, there was a lot of mindfulness, but I couldn't connect with it for a very long time, because a lot of it was very do this body scan. And I understand the whole, like, the point is to not focus on the pain and move on, but like the way it was always worded was like I couldn't bring myself to do these body scans, because I was like, notice how you feel. I was like, this hurts and this hurts and this hurts and this hurts, and it wasn't the most relaxing of experiences. And I did find that I use an app now that I really like, and instead of noticing how I feel, that it's more do I need to relax this part of my body? And that was a really helpful switch for me to then be able to do body scans, because they would switch on and I would be like, nope. And
I guess one thing to say is that, I mean, body scans are one part of the toolkit. People can take or leave them if they find helpful. And again, in different kind of traditions, they use them differently. So in maybe more traditional CBT, it might be about relaxation and kind of relaxing the body and muscles. The way we use it in ACT is maybe not about necessarily feeling relaxed. And in many cases, it's quite natural not to feel relaxed, because in some cases, we're asking people to direct attention towards the pain, which is a fundamentally strange thing to do, because everything in our mind is sort of telling us, get away from the pain, escape the pain, of course, natural. So we're kind of saying bring a sense of curiosity to what that experience is like, not because it means you like it, but maybe that curiosity and creating some space for the pain will give you an option that you can then move on to do something else. So in fact, when people say I wasn't relaxed during that, that's sort of not a bad outcome. It's just can we bring some curiosity to this really fundamentally weird experience and see what that would be like? And ultimately, if you find that that's not helpful, that's fine too. Then we move on and find something else that's going to be helpful. So it's not about being rigid. It's about being flexible, about testing things out and seeing what works in your life.
And so following on from that, so we've talked about, speaking to ourselves and thinking about our values and some mindfulness techniques and finding whatever might work for us. Are there any other, hang on one second. Mimi said, feel some guilt about not working or being productive at the moment, and it's making me feel a bit lost, but I'm also in more pain and more fatigued. Are there any ways to combat this, if there are any ways? And I will echo that I've been struggling a lot with working right now, and trying not to beat myself up about it is the first step. But if you've got any advice for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it also just depends on what kind of your employment circumstances. And I don't kind of pretend to know the ins and outs of all of the sort of challenges around sort of employment regulations or, sick pay and all of that. But just to say that if you feel like you sort of can't keep up with your workload quite reasonably, sort of talking to your employer is probably the first point of contact. Obviously, not all employers are equally understanding, so that's a consideration.
Some are self-employed as well, because I know many,
some are self-employed. So admittedly, I don't have kind of all the answers for that. If you do still feel able to sort of show up for, and I say show up for in the sense of work from home potentially, for some kind of work, just exploring, are there different patterns of working that might work for you? So rather than saying I have to work from X time to X time, might it be like working in smaller blocks, taking more time in the middle to either rest or to sort of explore some hobbies or to just do nothing? So just seeing where there's flexibility in your patterns of working even from home, and if that gives you more options to try and still do something if that's on the table for you right now.
Do you find that for doing pain management strategies that it can be more challenging with fatigue, or are there things that people with fatigue have to bear in mind in ways people who don't experience debilitating fatigue have to?
I mean, certainly fatigue is a major challenge. And in fact, most of the people that we see at our pain service also have what we would call kind of clinically meaningful levels of fatigue, irrespective of what kind of pain they have. And we actually recently did a study where we kind of looked, because we kind of hypothesized, like, would people with fatigue maybe benefit less from our approach? Because, I mean, it's kind of an added burden and there's obvious challenges that come with fatigue. And in fact, the data kind of said it's possible to kind of equally benefit. And that's not to kind of downplay the challenges, just to say that I think a lot of the strategies that we're talking about now are relevant for both pain and fatigue. So again, it doesn't make it any easier, but there are still options to sort of explore self-managing and explore bringing that kindness, being aware of the thoughts and feelings that show up around pain and fatigue, and then making a choice. And sometimes that choice is, I need to rest right now.
And I think I cut the question off before I finished asking it, but so we talked about some of these techniques. Are there other things, for example, journaling or any other things that people could do from home that could help them process if mindfulness isn't something that they've done or that they've had a good experience with? So,
I mean, not all of this has to be kind of what we classically say an eyes closed exercise. But things like even writing down thoughts or feelings can be kind of a way to get some space from them. And that's kind of how we can frame it within ACT. So we kind of have this kind of process that we call cognitive diffusion. So this is kind of a way to step back from your thoughts. You can do it with feelings as well. So something simply like if you find a thought is kind of on replay in your mind, or it's kind of swirling around and it feels kind of really sticky or old or stale, you might just take out a piece of paper and just write down this thought, like, I don't know, I feel like I can't deal with this right now. or it's all becoming too much, and just put it on a piece of paper. And as strange as it sounds, just look at that piece of paper for a while. It may be really quite painful to start, but then it may sort of get that space and that kind of distance from the thought. It may not change, but it may just give you that wiggle room to say, okay, it's there. I'm having a thought. It doesn't have to dictate what I do. What can I do next?
And I think this kind of follows on from it. Just to see the whole talk. I will upload the talk later, and I'm going to try and get it with subtitles so that it's more accessible. But thank you for joining us. So I was just looking at the questions. So this kind of follows on from it. And we were talking earlier, you mentioned a grounding strategy of putting your feet on the ground. What are some other strategies for when kind of the acute stress or the acute pain spikes really happen? What are some good ways for people to manage that?
Yeah. So I think anything that you can connect with a sense of what's happening right now, that's not what's happening right now in the mind. So when stress is acute and when there's sort of a crisis like what's happening now, or when pain is really bad, it's really natural to kind of draw really inwards. Again, totally natural. But then so we have kind of other strategies, kind of like notice what's happening in your five senses. And this can be done in a whole variety of ways, but just sort of making the conscious intention to pause. And then again, as silly as this might sound, maybe just looking around the room and noticing 5 objects you see, bringing your attention to what you can hear, and it can help to close your eyes if you like. So noticing 5 sounds or as many sounds that you hear around you. And then seeing if you want to bring your attention towards your body and just noticing 5 sensations. Pain may be one of them, and there may be others. So again, this is not sort of a quick magic fix. It's just can I step back from the chaos? Can I step back from the stress and just see what else is going on?
And what are the things that people who are trying to support people living with these kind of chronic pain issues or panics do? So say I had a really bad pain spike, or a friend of mine had a really bad pain spike and I wanted to support her. What could I do, even if I had to do it remotely? How could I be supportive?
So you mean, how do the supporters offer the support?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, because I haven't necessarily done a lot of work specifically on this, but I think sort of fundamentally just asking, how can I support you? Because obviously everyone's going to be different. Everyone wants support differently. So that's probably a good starting point. And then I think in general, kind of just looking at how sort of 2 people are communicating, sort of if you're the person living with pain, seeing how can I assert kind of my needs and communicate what's going on for me right now in a way that's potentially likely to be well received. So even when stress is happening, it's natural to kind of maybe either be withdrawing or maybe be more aggressive is the wrong word, but to be sort of more forceful in our communications. But maybe if you are feeling quite frustrated or angry, that's maybe not the best time to kind of ask for something. Maybe just taking a few moments to kind of step back and cool down, and then kind of collecting your thoughts, and then asking for what you need.
And one thing I'll say on that as well, from a lot of the messages I've had from people who are talking about struggling with family or friends not being supportive, and this isn't the case for everyone, but a lot of times when I've asked, have you shared how you're feeling, in situations where it's safe to do so, but like a lot of times I think it's the mind reading thing where we expect people to know what we need without saying it. So,
absolutely. Really good point.
So thank you. So so communicating that is really important, especially, you know, if you are having a more difficult time than usual, and you might not necessarily show it. Like, this is something I struggled with a lot in doctor's appointments. Actually, just as a side note, this might be something that would be interesting to talk about, because I think there are a lot of people who, it's such a weird balancing act when you see medical professionals, right? Because you can't be too upset or angry because then you're hysterical. You can't be too matter of fact because then it doesn't affect you. That pisses me off. And then I know a lot of people who are neurodiverse have a lot of trouble with that as well, because they're not presenting in ways that are like acceptable to doctors. So what are some kind of, I know this again is very individual and broad strokes, but what are some ways for people who might not, who might struggle with how to present their pain or to speak about it?
Yeah. So when we sort of talk about in the context of medical appointments, we know that that can already be quite a stressful time. So sort of a simple tip might just be beforehand to prepare, kind of write down some specific points about how the pain is affecting you. So this isn't just, I mean, writing down sort of the pain intensity and sort of how often it happens, where in your body, what it feels like are kind of good first steps. But then to convey sort of the impact about like, how does pain impact on specific activities? What are you not doing because of the pain? What do you want to be doing but sort of aren't doing right now? How does it affect your mood? So do you find that you feel down or stressed or angry when in pain? How does it affect your relationships, both kind of intimate or with friends or your community? So kind of reflecting on some of those questions can be kind of good to just write down in bullet points to talk about with healthcare providers. That said, I mean, it depends on how much you want to share in a safe space with people around you, but that can kind of guide if you do need to communicate, sort of being specific about how pain is affecting you and kind of what help you need. So if pain is impacting on your ability to do housework, maybe labeling that and sort of asking assertively what that might mean in terms of the support you're asking for. Are you asking specifically if someone would do the dishes this time? Are you asking specifically if someone can help you, I don't know, get dressed? So yeah, that can be sort of charting out the different impacts of pain, not just how it feels, but how it's affecting various aspects of your life can be helpful.
Yeah, I've definitely found that's been really beneficial, because I think people who haven't experienced pain or fatigue, even if they're very caring and they are very supportive, they can't necessarily understand how it's specifically affecting you at any one time. So having that kind of more specific way of explaining it, I found has been
that
really
might
helpful.
also give, I mean, certainly pain and fatigue are not things that we can see, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges sort of in a social context, is that even very well-meaning people who want to support and care for you, they just might not know how. And it can be equally overwhelming for people around if they feel like they don't know how, and it kind of just feels like this big problem that there's no ins. So saying very specifically, this is what I'm struggling with today. Is this something that you would be able to help me with today? And that can maybe perhaps help them with their own maybe feelings of anxiety or not feeling like they know what to do.
And I know that you said that you've been struggling a lot with this at the moment as well, with the switching off of following the news and social media. I did have a few questions that people had asked me about this, and if you can't answer them, that's fine. But one of them actually was that they said that they do DBT, and they often have to use, had to learn the skill of checking the facts. So what's in their head versus kind of the reality of the situation. But how can you use so I said, how can you use that when pain can come at any time? So, you know, if you're worrying about pain or you're worrying about something happening, when in the reality you can't say, no, I'm, you know, right now.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on kind of the nature of the worry. So with pain, it's really natural to worry about whether it means something is sort of very bad happening in one's body, or sort of what the future will be like. If it's kind of very broad worries about the future, that might be a chance to kind of check in with, is there kind of something that's happening right now that I can just connect with? So those grounding exercises I talked about. Obviously, different chronic pain conditions are different, but in many cases, if someone's kind of gone through a sort of thorough assessment and diagnostic workup, it's kind of safe to do things with the pain. So sort of worries about hurting one's body if they're moving more might be sort of just something to acknowledge and check in with, but may not necessarily be something that needs to be acted upon. Obviously, sort of just taking care of one's body through gentle exercise and stretching can be helpful there. And I lost my train of thought. I had something else to say, but I've forgotten now.
That's okay. Yeah, I think we've spoken about this before, and we're hopefully doing some more on it in the future. But I think that fear thing, the older I've gotten, the longer that I've kind of lived with all of this, the more I've realized like how the fear is almost like a habit, in a sense that like it's grounded in very real things, especially like from when I was younger. But that then over time can overwhelm
Yeah. And how do you think that you've sort of come to a point to be able to maybe deal with or respond to that fear more helpfully? What's helped you?
So I've had access to help with getting stronger physically, and I've been very lucky with that. And part of that has been almost at the beginning, it's like tricking my brain to be like, I can't move this, I can't put my foot here right now. It's like, okay, we're going to learn how to do it safely. And so a lot of the things for me, like I'm terrified of, like, I can't watch people on TV walk in the rain. Like I get a visceral reaction to it because I just see their knees flying out everywhere. And because that's kind of was always my biggest issue, was my knees. And like literally now, like if I have to get to the car and it's wet outside, I speak to myself constantly, I'm okay, it's okay, I'm okay. And I think over time, those small things add up and you realize it's not like this all the time. And I think with pain and with flare-ups, and I forgot, and I wanted to say this earlier, I think right now I am nervous about having a flare-up. I think a lot of people are. But at the same time, it's really important to remember that you still do have good periods and that a flare-up doesn't last forever. And it's very hard when you're in the depth of that.
For sure.
To remember it.
100%. And I kind of like your example of you sort of building up over time. And certainly this is kind of a learning process. So it doesn't have to be, if you are feeling very fearful, it's not necessarily jumping fully into the pond and kind of facing things all at once. It's kind of dipping the toe in and seeing, today, what do I feel willing to kind of face and test out? Because definitely with pain, there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of just not knowing. And one natural response to not knowing is to sort of do everything to not face the unknown. And that can work for a time, but it can also come with some costs. And those costs may be that life looks a lot smaller than one wants it to. So another strategy is to say, maybe, is there an opportunity today to just dip my toe in the water a little bit and see, I'm going to face just something small and see what happens and see if that's going to be a better direction for me.
And you said the word isolation, which I think a lot of people are experiencing at the moment. And I've seen a lot of people in the disability community, in the chronic illness community, especially people who have kind of long-term pain and fatiguing conditions that have meant that they've spent significant periods of time over many years isolated, feeling quite bitter and frustrated at people making podcasts after being isolated for 3 days about how hard being isolated is. And I mean, I understand that like everyone in like the world is scared right now. And I think, you know, we shouldn't dismiss that. This is a scary thing. I also like, I've seen a lot of people say that hopefully this will make people understand the disabled experience. And I see that up to a point, but I also think the experience is very different. Like if, for example, if you're healthy and you're at home, it's very different from some, and then you can go back to work, hopefully when this is over. It's very different from people who are, this is over and then are still going to basically be isolated. So I'd be curious to know if you have any ideas for coping strategies for people who are kind of finding it hard just to see the whole discourse around isolation, and how you know, things that people have been asking for years have been implemented in the space of a week and a half, and you know, and that kind of sense of loss. So 100% I'm with you that I think in many ways the provisions, and again, I'm not sort of through and through with employment and disability law, but sorry,
I think
one second. Sorry. I think, Kushi, I think you don't need to request. I think hopefully you should just be able to watch. We can't add more than 2 people into the video, but if you want to ask questions, you can pop them in the chat. Sorry.
Okay, so just to caveat that, I'm certainly not an expert in sort of disability or employment law, but just to say, I think the provisions for people to work flexibly up until this point have been probably woefully inadequate. And it is certainly infuriating to see that. I mean, obviously the response has been appropriate to our current circumstances, but that kind of begs the question, why haven't we been doing this all along for the people that need it? So again, I'll keep going back to these responses and these feelings are totally understandable. That said, kind of moving forward and how you can deal with this, kind of going back to this idea of values and what kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to show up during this kind of crisis? I mean, one response is to feel bitter and to follow those bitter thoughts and feelings and act in that way. That is one's choice. Another way is to say, how do I want to rally my community? How do we build on this? How do we then fight for our rights moving forward when this is done? And that could be something that starts being planned now. If people feel that they have the energy and resources to do that. If not, it may just be, we park this for now and maybe we pick it up when things have calmed down. So those perhaps are just a bit of waffling, but I do think I'm 100% with you that this is a lesson that things can be done flexibly, and it's just about how the community wants to pursue, either advocating for that, fighting for that, whatever words people want to use.
And I suppose if, you know, this does go on over a longer period of time and people don't get access to the support that they need for quite a while, we talked about not being really rigid with having, you know, I need to do this today, I need to do that today. But are there ways that people can start thinking about, strategizing is the wrong word, and I don't want to say overly planning, but I suppose you do have to have like a strategy for yourself over a longer period of time, and how that can develop. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, so I certainly think trying to get structure where structure is possible, still setting goals, keeping the goals realistic. I mean, longer term goals can still be planned, but holding that flexibly, as I said, so you can have structure, but you can also hold that all flexibly from one day to the next, depending on sort of what's showing up with stress, with symptoms, with the outside world. So that is still very much possible, and it's kind of something to recheck in with day by day to see how that's serving you. And I use you as in the royal you.
The royal we.
The royal we, the royal you.
So, yeah, I think that's helpful. Like I'm going to start making lists of like small things that are aims for the day. I find writing it down, if I don't write like really basic things down, sometimes I just won't do them.
Love a good list.
Love a good list.
Off a good list.
And
and again, making it manageable, but chunking it up, writing it down, having a sense of achievement, even if it's something like, I got out of bed today and I got washed. Like, that might be where you're at, and that's still an achievement, and that's progress.
I actually found that when I'm in a more manageable place, I don't use my lists. It's when I'm having a really hard time, and more often than not, I do my lists after I've done things. So I'll be like, I did do this today, and I did take it off, because I found that especially when you're in a really bad place, it feels like you've done nothing, when actually you might have got out of bed to, you know, brush your teeth, or, you know, you've got yourself a cup of tea, or, you know, whatever that is. And even though to a lot of people that might be very small, that is a huge thing when you're in a particularly difficult time. And I think even just recognizing that,
and notice even helpful. Kind of in that simple example, all the examples of kind of thoughts showing up around that. So there is this experience that I've had a real difficult time getting out of bed today, and the thoughts are, I should have gotten out of bed, I haven't done enough, I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve. So those are all examples of, when can we just acknowledge that those are showing up, and then decide, how do we respond? Can we just actually say, wait a second, can I give myself a break? There's a lot going on right now. I've actually done X, Y, Z, and can I just sit with that for a little while?
Yeah, and I think that was a big mindset shift for me, actually, to just realize that I remember being in physio when I was 21 and not being able to sit through a film because it hurt too much. And her saying, like, we can build up to you sitting through a film. And I was like, that's not an achievement. And I got very like angry about that. So it's interesting just kind of seeing over time how that all changes. So do you have, I mean, and I can share these afterwards, like, do you know of any apps that could be beneficial, or resources or books or playlists or things that we could potentially recommend?
So to be fair, I kind of don't use a whole lot of apps, so I haven't reviewed them. So I wouldn't sort of you're probably a better expert in this than I am. I do have that document that I was talking about by, his name is Russ Harris. He's kind of a world famous ACT practitioner, and it's kind of a guidance for dealing with COVID, and that can be applied to pain as well. So I can share that with you. It's kind of just on a Google Drive doc that I can share with you. I do know that this related, but not directly specific to pain, but there's a whole kind of bunch of kind of artistic community sort of endeavors to kind of stream things. So I know like the Met has an opera they're streaming. A lot of theaters might be streaming kind of theater works. There's kind of virtual tours of museums. So there's stuff like that where people can still kind of connect with hobbies or interests, even while remote.
And let's hope that these will keep up after all of this is over, because so much of this would have been so huge for a lot of us for a long time. Is there anything that I didn't ask about that you think would be good to discuss?
I'm just trying to think. The only other kind of really practical thing, and again, this isn't necessarily specific to pain, but if people are feeling like they're really struggling to get access to food, and kind of just daily resources kind of thing. I know, and this may just be kind of where I'm at, but definitely in London, there's a whole bunch of kind of local community groups popping up on sort of Facebook and WhatsApp, offering support to go get groceries for people that are struggling, elderly, but as well people that have different challenges. So yeah, if you are struggling, just reaching out to some of those, obviously sort of keeping an eye out that unfortunately, even in the darkest of times, there are people that will try and take advantage. So I know just within our community group, basically they say it's never about exchanging money. We'll just go, the people that can go get food will go drop it off. So sort of not giving people money that you don't know. But yeah, reaching out if needed, because there are people that are willing to help.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the nice things seeing this. It gives you a bit of faith in humanity. So I think, it's... I've been thinking for a long time that out of necessity, though, I've spent way too much time on the internet, in the sense that I think it can kind of, it's almost like our brains can't cope with if we spend all day on the internet and taking in that much information. It's almost like my brain can't deal with it. And so getting off of Twitter, I'm not saying people get off of Twitter, but for me, getting off of Twitter was really important because it made me less reactive of a person, because I didn't feel like I had to respond to everything super quickly. And I think more and more people are now going online, right? Like we've got more people online at any given time than usual. And I mean, I think everyone's struggling to log off, and everyone's struggling to kind of take that. And I think if you are experiencing pain and fatigue and you can't get out of bed, what are you going to do except scroll? So perhaps I could ask as well, like if oh, sorry, I'm just showing my bananas. I don't know how that happened. For people, I mean, it could be the, how do you greet someone with chronic conditions without making them feel uncomfortable? Like if I don't want to say, I hope you're fine. Yeah, I mean, we can answer that now. When we're going to be doing some resources as well further on that we've been working on for a while. So I'm excited about that. Whitney's been very kind with her time. So I'll just answer that quickly. A lot of people like saying, I hope you're doing as well as possible, or just asking how they are, I guess, is quite good. If you have any other suggestions.
Yeah, no, I think that's really reasonable. And I think also just, I mean, if people ask, be open to hear the answer as well.
The honest answer.
Yeah,
very good point. But yeah, I think unless it's stuff that we've talked about earlier, for people who are in situations where distractions aren't necessarily, for people who are in situations, where they can't necessarily just go and distract themselves or do another hobby, and the way that they were filling their time was with scrolling through the internet, with that being as scary as it is, what can people do when they're kind of in a situation where they're not able to do much else?
Yeah, I mean, that said, the internet, as much information is coming in, there are aspects of it that may not be so threatening or so overwhelming. So I know, I actually didn't know how to set this up, but my partner, Jonathan, did for me. He has put a time limit on my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So I get limits. Basically, it says it'll lock me out of it. And then I can either choose to close my phone or go on something else. I actually did have him, I put my phone like across the room the other night because I'm like, I will just keep opening this. So, I mean, kind of the things I was talking about, if you still want to go online, look at, are there ways to get online that's going to allow me to explore my hobbies, or if I want to learn something. So just as examples, and again, these are entire examples, they're not meant to be kind of prescriptive, but are there apps that allow you to learn languages? If concentration's a difficult thing right now, do you want to just listen to some music that you enjoy? So that's still being online, but it's not engaging with the chaos that's often present right now in some of the news circuits and social media feeds.
Yeah, and there are a lot of apps that are offering free audiobooks right now and things like that. So I guess take advantage of those.
Yeah, and equally using the internet to connect with your community, however you define that, and engaging. I mean, it may be helpful at times, it may not be helpful. Reaching out to friends and family or other acquaintances, it can be sort of a source of connection, but it may also come with its own stress. So kind of choosing how you wish to do that. But I think maintaining connection where possible is going to be helpful.
Yeah. It's actually been quite funny for me because there are so many more people around in the day now that you're getting messages from people that you don't necessarily hear from, being like, "Hi," it's like, "Where were you 6 months ago?" But it's been nice. But it's been an interesting time on the internet right now. But I think unless anyone has any last minute questions, we can pop in the chat. I think that's been really, really helpful. I think especially in terms of recognizing that we are allowed to feel how we're feeling right now, which I suppose is relevant all the time, but not kind of building that extra pressure on ourselves to feel like we're doing and producing and accepting that
if you're happy about things, like it's a tough time.
It is, and knowing that, you know, it's okay if we're struggling to do our health stuff too. So what would your, like, I'm gonna put you on the spot, what would your like kind of takeaway bullet points be? I am going to be saving this and captioning this live, by the way. Yeah,
I mean, so we talked a lot about just acknowledge, so notice and maybe label difficult thoughts and feelings that are showing up for you. Where possible, see if you can connect to something that's just happening right now. It's really natural to make all these predictions about what's going to happen. See where you can connect with something right in the moment, whether that be something you see, something you hear, what's going on directly around you, and then see if you can connect with what's important to you and the kind of person you want to be in the face of all of this, and see if there's the tiniest of steps that you can take to connect with that value, whether it be reaching out to someone you care about, whether it be about treating yourself with some kindness. So acknowledge, get present, and connect.
Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. And
my pleasure.
I hope that this has been helpful for people. As I said, I'm going to be captioning this somehow. I've asked for some help with that. And I will be posting this online soon. So thank you so much, Whitney.
Not a problem. I'll be emailing you just about some resources that I was talking about.
Amazing. And I will share them too. Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Bye.